Welcome to Wadsworth History on Film, a program presented by the Wadsworth Area Historical Society and designed to preserve Wadsworth history for posterity. I'm Cesar Carino, your host, and our guest today doesn't really need an introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. Is Dr. Dale Fortner, the former superintendent of schools, and the reason we have him on today is not because he's old, not because he's a Wadsworth native, or not because he can bring us any of the history of Wadsworth from way back when, but because he helped to make history, and we want to be sure that future generations will be able to understand who he was, what he did, and where he is at the present time. So Dale, welcome to Wadsworth History on Film, one of the very, very, very few, about 4 or 5, I think, in the 300 or more that we've done, who is not a Wadsworth native and is not old.
Well, you're very kind, but thank you.
Not old. But we have made a practice of making sure that future generations will know historically who you were, because you have done so much for Wadsworth, the schools and the community, and I can't begin to enumerate those things, but nonetheless, throughout this next hour, we're going to be able to talk about some of them.
Okay.
But before we do that, we know Dr. Dale Fortner, the man, Dr. Dale Fortner, the superintendent, and Dr. Dale Fortner, the Wadsworth community proponent and probably one of its strongest citizens. We don't know anything about, starting with the prenatal Dale Fortner and the little kid Dale Fortner. Tell us a little bit about the little kid Dale Fortner. Where were you born? When were you born? And tell us about your family and all of that kind of thing.
Sure. I've always been an Akron area person. My mom and dad were both educators. My dad left a legacy, I believe, as a high school football coach.
Sure he did. I remember him from way, way back when.
So my early years and my schooling were predicated to some degree around where he was. But my mom and dad were teachers, and I was born when we lived in Randolph. I believe technically I was at the Alliance Hospital, but there's obviously not a hospital in Randolph. But,
nothing in Randolph.
Nothing in Randolph. Well, but, and ironically, Randolph, where I was born and spent my early years, is the school district today where Dr. Andy Hill is from, Waterloo.
Yes, that's right.
So, so our paths crossed back that way. But born in that area, and we lived in Randolph when my dad was the coach there, and my mom and dad taught there. And then we moved to Stowe, where he was also a football coach.
And where did you live in Stowe?
We lived off of Stowe Road, just off Route.
Did you go to Stowe schools?
I was still preschool age.
Preschool
at that age. But then eventually we had a short stint in Richfield. We rented a home while we built a home in Copley, and built a home in Copley, and went to the Copley school system.
First grade?
First grade, and went to Copley school system through 9th grade, and that's where I guess most of my youth took place, and I grew up in the Copley school system. My dad had stayed in the Akron City Series coaching, but I was blessed to have 4 other siblings. I have 2 older brothers, an older sister, and a younger sister. And my childhood, I think, was very memorable. Quite different than today. Playing outside from dusk to dawn.
Right, which is what kids don't do anymore.
Right.
Sitting with their little telephones or whatever they do with their thumbs.
Being very active outside. I was asked one time from the media my favorite childhood memory. My favorite childhood memory was playing football in the side yard all day long with a bunch of neighborhood kids.
Right.
That's what I love to do. I love just to go out there, and we played a lot of different things, but playing football all day long with neighborhood friends was my favorite pastime.
And kind of making up your own rules.
Oh yeah, make up your own rules and playing the game. But
the oldest guy had the rule book. That's right. Yeah. Tell us who some of your teachers you remember from first grade on up.
Wow, well that's a great question. I remember, I was in the Copley school system. I had Mrs. Meadows, I think, as my 2nd grade teacher. I had a woman by the name of Mrs. Summergill as my 5th grade teacher. Geez, my memories doesn't go back that far. Probably the most prominent name that I had in my early years was my 7th grade social studies teacher. And her name was Joyce Sawyer, She is the wife of Congressman Tom Sawyer.
Tom Sawyer. I know Joyce
Yes.
very well.
Yes, and she was my 7th grade social studies teacher. I had a very impressionable language arts teacher in 7th grade, Helena Sturkey. She has since passed away, but I think I look back at that. I'm still in contact with Keith Walker, who is now the commissioner of the Suburban Athletic League. He was a coach of mine and a phys ed teacher of mine, a counselor. He served as a counselor when I was in the Copley system.
Who was your superintendent?
At that time, Helchin.
John Helchin.
John Helchin, yes. Yes, was our
From
superintendent.
Pennsylvania.
I don't know where he's from,
Yep,
but I was...
I was very close to John.
Yeah.
Very close to John. And as a matter of fact, after he left the superintendency, he came to the University of Akron and he taught there.
Okay.
But he taught the people, well, he was
Yeah.
one of the programs.
Right.
He didn't have a regular class, but one of the programs.
Right.
And the program happened to be under my aegis. So he was in my office almost every day.
How about
And
that?
so I knew John very well. You say that you played football. Now, obviously, with your father having been a coach, and incidentally, we're going to talk about that in a little bit
Okay.
because when you say legacy, we're talking a legacy. I mean, a legacy here that goes back probably, 60 years
Yes.
now, and in many cases has never been equaled.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about this football thing and why. I mean, it's not because your dad was a coach, but what?
No. I just love the game, and I think that manifests itself later on when I went on to play high school, play college, and then had a brief career as a coach. Football was a sport that was something that I just always thoroughly enjoyed, more so than my 2 older brothers, I believe, probably similar to my dad. I didn't enjoy coaching it as much as he enjoyed coaching it, but I really enjoyed playing it. And going back to my childhood memory of doing that, we lived in Copley, as I said, but eventually my dad was coaching in the Akron area, and we were of high school age or going into high school age, and there was a conflict with his team and our team. So he stepped down and took another job at Akron North. And
That's where I remember him.
yes, and then we moved to the Chapel Hill area. My older brother didn't have the opportunity to play under him, and he missed some of my older brother's games when he was at Copley. But my other brother and I then went to North. That time was a lot different than North is today. About 2,000 students in North High School. The rubber factories were booming. Akron City Series was the place to be, and it was a dominant area for high school athletics, and we had the opportunity to go there and play. So I played football at North and ended up graduating from North. I grew up in Copley, spent my last 3 years at North, and then went on to play at the College
Who were
of
some of the
Worcester.
other people at North who were presently recognized as being outstanding athletes that you remember?
Oh, well, certainly, my teammates. The couple are probably the most prominent one. A gentleman by the name of Lonnie Johnson. He was a friend of ours. He's a year older. Lonnie went on to be tailback for Indiana, and he played in the USFL for a while, and he played in the NFL for a little bit of time.
I was hoping you would bring that up, bring his name up.
Paris Wicks was another gentleman. He played his year behind me. He was a running back, and certainly probably one of the most noted football players that came out of there during the era that I played. But he played at Youngstown State and played in the national championship game, and went on to set several rushing records there. But probably.
What about Dale Fortner?
Oh well, I was a good high school football player. I wasn't as stellar. I think my pinnacle for playing came in college. I changed positions and I found kind of a new lease on life.
Now you went to which college?
I went to the College of Worcester.
College of Worcester. And tell us a little bit about that experience as well, particularly in the area of, three different areas there. You probably don't know that many people in Wadsworth know a lot more about you than you ever told them. But the 3 different areas, first in athletic,
Okay.
and then secondly, your student, student governance,
Okay.
not government, but
Okay.
student governance, and also then your social interaction at Worcester and what happens.
Okay. All right. Well, athletically, I was attracted to Worcester for two reasons. One, because of a strong academic reputation, and two, because I had the opportunity to play two sports. And I played two sports in college for 2 years. I played college tennis, and I played college football. And my love was still football, and it always was football. I had the opportunity, and I played varsity tennis, but I played in the lower end of the lineup, and I didn't love tennis as much as I did football. My football career at Worcester, I went there as a quarterback. I was a quarterback in high school, and I went there as a quarterback and a special teams player, as a punter and a kick returner and as a holder. But I ended up getting moved to defense, and they moved me to free safety, kind of the quarterback on the defense, to see the big picture and play the free safety position. And I was fortunate to be there, I think, at the right place at the right time. And I started as a freshman, very first game. They moved me, and by preseason I had earned the starting job, and then I started for 4 years as a free safety for Worcester, and that was a tremendous memory for me, a great experience.
Did you get a few accolades from Worcester?
Yes, I was fortunate to play with some great people, some great coaches, and it gave me the opportunity to excel. I was a 3-time academic All-American, named to a couple other
About time you said that.
couple other All-American teams, and obviously All-Conference and some of those things. Set some defensive records for tackles and interceptions. I think they're probably broken by now, but nonetheless, at that time, it was enjoyable.
You know, you're saying that reminds me of someone who said one time that there are 10 girls who win a beauty contest. Only one wins. Right. But the other 9 aren't ugly.
Right.
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 So when you say that you have these accolades from Worcester, and maybe the record has been broken, I don't care if it is broken.
Right.
The fact is that you did it one time.
At one time.
At one time, yeah.
In my younger years.
And the only reason you can't do it now is you're an old man.
Well,
as far as football is concerned.
Yes,
you're not old
that's
for
true.
anything else, obviously. Dale, what about your student governance?
Well, I tell you, I was very pleased to academically with Worcester, took some leadership positions within the student body, and ended up declaring as an English major. And I studied English. My undergraduate thesis at Worcester. Worcester is a type of institution where in order to graduate as an undergrad, you have to do an independent study. Right. So for one term we researched, and one term we wrote, then we presented, we had an oral test in front of our department, in front of our panel, and then I graduated with academic honors at Worcester as an English major. I did my independent study in poetry, in British poetry. What I studied was a book by William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and it was called Lyrical Ballads. And the reason I chose that is because some of the literary periods, or many of the literary periods, were named after the monarchs. The Victorian age, Elizabethan age, as the Queen dictated what people would write about, and writing for the aristocracy, and using a language that was of a higher echelon. And William Wordsworth and Samuel Coleridge came on, and they wrote simple language. They used simple language to write about everyday man and common things, and that started a new movement in literature as people became more literate and people read. Not just the wealthy were the only ones that were schooled, and I think that's what I studied, and that's what I did my independent study thesis on, my undergraduate thesis.
That's what I'm glad to hear you say, because you know there's a fallacy in thinking that people who are very, very good in athletics typically don't become involved with almost anything else except maybe social studies. Yeah. But here we have a person who led our school district for, what, 13 years?
12 years,
12
yes.
years, 12 years, led our school district, who not only has that athletic background, but also has a highly respected academic background. I'd be willing to wager, Dale, that you could not find more than one or two or maybe three college graduates who would be able to compare their thesis or their theses with what you did. And I knew about this. As a matter of fact, I did some research and found out about this, but I knew about this. And it was the one thing that probably has changed the entire approach to literature of Wordsworth.
Yes.
And
yes.
You were ahead of the game on that. What year did you do that?
I started it in 1981. Graduated in 82 after I finished it.
If I'm not mistaken, it was not until much later that people began to recognize that, and you had already done it. And I wanted to hear you say that.
Oh, thank you.
I knew about that, but I wanted to hear you say that because one of the things that I have known about you since we've been associated for these past several years. You came in Wadsworth in 1998?
Yeah, late 90s, yes.
98, something like that.
98, yes, I believe that was.
Was that in order to get anything personal out of you that gives you any kind of supportive data for an accolade, you have to just drag it out of you. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to drag these things out of you because people in Wadsworth know you only what you wanted to tell them. We're going to tell. We want them to know who you really are from there. Okay. Let's go from you started in 1981. You graduated from Worcester in 81, is that right?
No, I graduated in 82.
Oh,
but my senior thesis started in the fall of 81.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So in 82.
82 graduate, yes.
30 years after I graduated from college, so you can know how old I am. But anyway, starting in 82, you left college.
Yes.
Two great big things happened. Tell us about the one thing, that is your profession and perhaps a little bit in your personal life.
Well, I received a job offer and I started my teaching career. And
where?
I started my teaching career actually at Lakewood St. Ed's High School. Mm-hmm. I had one job offer, and when I came out of college, and accepted that, and being the diverse, I guess, individual that I am, I coached tennis there, and taught 9th and 10th grade English, and coached football. So those are my passions and those are my loves, and that continued on through St. Ed's. And then I spent 2 years at Nordonia doing the same. And then I took 1 year off and went back to Worcester to coach college football to see if that's a passion that I wanted to pursue, and met a lot of people that way. But eventually came back to education at Firestone High School, where I took the head football job. The same year I met my future wife, Debbie, mm-hmm. and then I coached at Firestone for 4 years as a head football coach and athletic director. And
who was principal at the time, and who was the assistant principal?
At that time, the first principal I had was Bob Hatherall, mm-hmm. and then Bob was followed by Denny Woods, and then Denny Woods left, and then when I became athletic director, Bill Holko, who's a Wadsworth resident, he was an individual that came to Firestone, and then eventually he went to Revere, and I followed him to Revere.
Now, do you remember your assistant principal's name?
Jim Strabick was an assistant principal at Firestone High School. Sandy Stubbs was, and Terry Wheeler. Those were names, and Dick Rogers. Dick Rogers was also an assistant principal. So those are names that I worked with at Akron Firestone.
At Akron Firestone. Yeah. Let's drop off just for a couple seconds about this person, Debbie, that you're talking about. And how did you meet Debbie, and what was she doing at the time?
I was young in my teaching career. She was finishing up her schooling to be a teacher. We met at a wedding. A family friend of hers, John Wachtel, two family friends, John Wachtel and Judy Ruffner. They're from Rittman. Mm-hmm. Ruffner Furniture might ring a bell to some.
They are. Mm-hmm.
They were high school friends of hers, and she was at the wedding. John and I went to Worcester together. We were friends from the College of Worcester, And
Where's Debbie from?
She's from Rittman. So
And what is her maiden name?
her maiden name is Tomlinson.
Tomlinson.
Yes.
And when you met her, what year?
I met her in 1986. Yes.
I have never had an opportunity to say that I can one-up you on that. I met her many years before you did.
Oh, when she was at Akron U as a student?
No, I met her when she was a little child.
Oh, okay.
Her father was a student of mine.
Yes, he was the teacher.
Yes, he was a student of mine.
Okay.
And he brought her to school one time when she was a little cute little girl. She would probably, let's see, this would have been in 1970, 71.
Okay.
What year was she born?
66. Yeah.
So she was 5 years old.
Yep.
I know, she's the cutest little thing in the world. I remember. So I met your wife before you did.
Yes, so obviously, yes. Well, I didn't know that story, but
yes, I met her, and I can tell you where we were when I met her.
Your memory's amazing.
Yes, well, that I can remember, but of course, as you, I don't like little girls, you know. But they're so precious and so nice, and she was the cutest little thing, and her father was the nicest person.
Yes.
I can still remember where he sat. Okay. Because of having brought Debbie to and then when I realized that, well, I didn't recognize her obviously because she was only 5 years old at the time. And then when I saw her with you as your wife,
yes,
I didn't make that connection until I met her father. One time her father came, and he said, "You remember?" I said, "Yes, I do. You were one of the cute little girls." And well, there she is. That's Dale's wife.
Yes, we met and we're married and just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. 25 years this past June.
This would have been 1971 or I'm almost 71 or 70. It was in the summertime, or a summer evening. It was a summer class, and for whatever reason, he brought her to school. It's just a cute little thing. So I wanted to be sure that we got that out of there, and that you are well aware of the fact that I met her before you did.
You did one-up me on that.
That's the only time that I did one-up him. From the College of Worcester, did you at that time decide once and for all, I don't want to be a college coach?
Yes, I had the exposure. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I graduated. I had a degree in English as well as education. Wanted to pursue education as my first passion, but then I had the itch to try to see if I wanted to coach college football. So I came back to Worcester. I had an opportunity to coach with a gentleman. His name is Bob Tucker, and Bob had a great resume himself. He was a Worcester graduate, I believe, of '63, and he had spent the last 6 years at Ohio State as Earl Bruce's defensive coordinator. But he was a young man and wanted to get out of the rat race of Division I football, so he came back to lead the Worcester program. He obviously had developed many connections on the Division I level and worked with many coaches, and he said, if you want to coach big-time college football, come work with me at Worcester, and then I can get you interviews or get you connected. And so I came and did that for 1 year with him, met a lot of great people. That's where I met Jim Tressel, worked with Jim Tressel when Jim was the quarterback coach at Ohio State at that time, and I was the quarterback coach at Worcester.
What year was that?
That was in 85, 84,
I got
85.
another one-upsman on
Uh-oh.
Jim Tressel was a graduate assistant while I was assistant dean at the University of Akron in the College of Education.
Okay.
Beyond that, his father,
Lee
Tressel, was my phys ed teacher when I was in college.
We have both ends of the spectrum covered with the Tressel
his older brother, Jim's older brother,
Dick
Tressel, was about 4 years old, and he would come with his father when we were having phys ed, and play football with us, and he was better than any of us. He was only 4 years old at the time, or 4 or 5 years old. So Lee Tressel is the father. Jim Tressel came to the University of Akron as a graduate assistant in our college. So I knew him at that time.
So I had great opportunities. I had great mentors. Worked with a lot of excellent people. But when I looked at college coaching, the lifestyle was not nearly as glamorous as people thought.
It's brutal.
Yes, it wasn't the type of career I wanted. As a matter of fact, I know my deciding factor. I was young, I was 25, but it was a year when there was a lot of change. Jim Dennison had moved out at Akron U. Jerry Faust was coming in. Lou Holtz had moved, I think, from Minnesota to Notre Dame. And there was all this shuffling at the big-time college level. And since I was with Bob Tucker, who had coached with Ohio State and a lot of other places with Earl Bruce, we were at a national coaches convention. And I was saddened to see the desperate coaches out there looking for a job. And they would come up to me and they said, are you with Bob Tucker? I said, yes. And they said, can you get me to talk to Bob or to talk to Earl Bruce? And I said, and basically, I just saw the insecurity, and I said, that's not the type of lifestyle I want to lead. Many of them have been, if you look at college coaches' resumes, many of them have been to 4, 5, 8 places. They move around, and it's just not the security or the lifestyle that I wanted. So I applied back to go into education, was fortunate that Conrad Ott and the rest of the folks at Akron had a little faith in me. I was a young coach, and gave me the opportunity to lead Firestone, and I did that. Went to teach at Firestone High School, and then coached there for a few years before I got out of coaching.
So then, what did you do?
Well, after I got out of coaching, I spent a year being athletic director at Firestone, and then that's when I worked with Bill Holko, and then Bill went to Revere as the high school principal, and they had an assistant principal opening, and with the blessing of Bill and Pat Corbett and Tina Dinklocker, I went to Revere as an assistant principal and started my administrative career. And spent a few years as a high school assistant, then moved down to the middle school, and eventually became middle school principal, and then left Revere Middle School after a couple years and came to Wadsworth as the high school associate under Ron Jones.
Under Ron Jones,
so that's
right.
I spent my first 15 years at St. Ed's and Nordonia and College of Worcester and Revere, and then I spent my last 15 years in Wadsworth.
What was your impression of Wadsworth when you first came here? This is a completely different kind of city from, well, actually, Revere is not in a city.
Right,
And,
right.
and some of the other places where you were, well, one was a parochial institution.
Right.
And, you know, completely different.
Right. Well, I can tell you that from the outside, it's a place that always intrigued me. Debbie and I decided to move here. She's from Rittman. I was raised in the Copley-Akron area. We had lived in Copley for a while. When we decided to build a home, we decided to build it here in Wadsworth. So I was here in Wadsworth in 1994. We built our first home, and then I worked at Revere for 4 or 5 years before coming to Wadsworth. So I knew the community. I loved the community. I saw how special it was as a place to raise your kids. I was familiar with the school system, being in the same athletic league, and admired that. And that's where I'm really fortunate and indebted, I think, to Chuck Parsons and to Ron Jones, who gave me that opportunity to blend my personal life and my professional life together and to work and live in the same town. And it was a challenge when I was at Revere because I was pulled to Revere events where my kids were at Sacred Heart and going to Wadsworth games and Wadsworth activities, and the two worlds were heading in opposite directions. But coming to Wadsworth enabled me to have kind of the best of both worlds, to be a school administrator as well as also to be a parent and a community supporter and live and work in the same town. So I do thank them for that opportunity.
When you came to Wadsworth as a principal, or the assistant, let's start with the assistant principal first. When you came to Wadsworth as assistant principal with Ron, what was the biggest challenge that Wadsworth was facing? This was 1998. What was the biggest challenge? And I think that a lot of people don't quite understand and realize that.
Well, we were coming off the Columbine incident, as I remember, and you know, school security was certainly high on people's lists. We were coming off some changes in the testing, Ohio graduation test, or the HISCU, and they were implementing all these changes. But I think what Ron did a great job of was trying to pull that faculty together and those students together in a time somewhat uncertainty. There was still a feeling, I think, by some people with the Columbine that nothing would ever happen here, and Wadsworth is immune to that. But the further you reached out, you saw that it could happen anywhere, and so those are some of the things that I remember first coming, aboard into Wadsworth with Ron and dealing with some of the challenges as principal that we faced.
Ron had a previous assistant principal.
John Swires.
John Swires, yeah.
Yes.
I couldn't think of his name for a second. Where did John go?
John ended up retiring, and to talk about a small world, John was a former Akron teacher, a former Akron coach, and actually took over for the Kenmore program when my dad left.
I knew that the Akron connection, but I couldn't think of his name.
Yeah. So when my dad stepped down at Kenmore High School as football coach, John took over for him, and our family had maintained a relationship with him over the years.
And the reason I'm asking the question is that did John give you the impetus to come to Wadsworth to apply for the job, or?
That's a great story, and we talk about opportunity, and we talk about how little things in life make a difference. I knew John was retiring. I heard that he was moving on. It was my understanding through the grapevine that a gentleman by Roger Kramer was going to move into that associate spot. So I did not apply for the job because I said, well, Roger had several more years to work, and I didn't want to. I was already a principal at a middle school level, and I didn't want to go be a high school assistant. My dad and I had a mutual coaching colleague by the name of Mario Rossi, who was at Garfield, and he passed away.
Yeah.
And I picked up my dad to go to the calling hours. And when we were walking in the calling hours, out was walking John Swires. Mm-hmm. And he said hello to my dad, he said hello to me, and he said, why didn't you apply for my position? He says, they're interviewing next week. And I said, well, I thought that Roger Kramer was going to move over to that position. He says, no, Roger's staying where he is. So the next day I called Ron Jones. I asked him if it was too late to apply. He said, no, send me a resume. And then I sent him the resume. As a matter of fact, it might have been that week. It might have been I sent him the resume on Thursday, and then I interviewed on Saturday. And then after, I think, 2 rounds of interviews, they offered me the position. So timing of walking into those calling hours and running into John, I don't know that I would have applied because of the communication I heard that Roger Kramer was going to move.
Too bad that Mario Rossi had to be the catalyst here, but it was as good as anything, I guess.
Yes.
Well, we're grateful that you did apply at that time, because from that point on, it has been just a beautiful history. Pardon me, I want to go back to your boyhood days to bring up another thread here.
Okay.
When you were at Copley,
yes,
did you have any thought at all about, I don't know how to say this particularly, did you have any thought at all about what you were going to do for the rest of your life, or did you think that you were going to be a football player and that was it?
Well, I think at that young age, I thought I wanted to be a football player. Like I said, I had loved the game so much. I had played the game so often, and just had a unique, what I feel is a unique passion to it. I was the type of player who loved going to practice.
Okay.
I loved practice and loved to play, and it probably wasn't until my Worcester days and my success that I thought that I might have the opportunity to play after college.
Okay. Now hold that thought for a second. Now let's take another thread.
Okay.
To see if we can tie them together. When did you decide that you were not going to do that, and what made you decide? And I think I might be able to.
I decided in college. I got injured. It wasn't a career-ending injury, but it was an injury I think that affected my play. And I think I saw that the one thing that was key, my speed had dropped a little bit, or had gone up a little bit in that regard, and that was pretty critical for defensive backs. And when I knew I couldn't hit the mark, I had a teammate who signed as a free agent. He was 2 years older. He signed as a free agent. He had played for 5 years in the NFL. and he had connected me with people through his experience, and I knew some of the watermarks you had to hit. And when I had enough recognition and success on All-Star and All-American teams, but I knew my numbers probably weren't where they needed to be to have a career playing after college.
That's a different answer than I was expecting.
Okay.
There's an old saying, I don't know if it's still extant, or an old saying that who is a college head coach's worst enemy? His wife. Because she doesn't want him to do it because of the insecurity and so forth.
Sure.
So I thought maybe it was when you got married that your wife said, we can't actually abide this insecurity because there is no guarantee for a coach.
Right.
Zero. I
Well,
mean.
Yep, and I think I realized it before I met Debbie, and that's where I saw that lack of security. And I met Debbie right after I made that decision not to pursue college coaching, went back into high school coaching and met her actually that summer. As a matter of fact, I think I received the Firestone job in April, and then I met my wife in June at a wedding.
At a wedding.
My to-be wife.
Yeah, that's right, soon-to-be wife. Well, you said something a little earlier that it's not all glamour, and so forth. It's the only job, well, that plus some of the other coaches as well, but the only job where your board doesn't fire you. Your community does.
Yes. Yes.
And that is not a good person to have as your boss.
Right.
Because let's go into your superintendency now. You were principal for a while when Chuck Parsons was the superintendent, and then Chuck decided to retire. That would have been what, about 2002 or 3?
2001 is when he retired. He actually announced it in the fall of 2000. I was in my second year as high school principal, and he called me down to his office and asked me if I was interested in applying because I had my superintendent's license. And initially I told him I wasn't planning on that initially because I wanted to be high school principal for several years. I wanted to try to be high school principal and establish myself maybe 5 to 8 years and then spend some years as superintendent. But you can't always name your timeline.
Nope.
You can't always name your opportunity. And so I applied, interviewed with the Board of Education, was fortunate enough to be offered the job a lot sooner than I wanted to be in my career, but again, it was something that I had to take opportunity in, and so I moved into that spot.
Curiosity, how old were you when you became superintendent?
40, I think, 40. It was just
40?
40, 41, somewhere in there, depending.
Very young for a superintendent.
It was probably earlier than most. There are younger superintendents, but I was fortunate as it was a big district. There are not a lot of big district superintendents.
That's right.
There are some smaller district superintendents, but that's where I feel blessed to be at the right place, the right time.
If you were going to try to identify one reason why the board chose you over some candidates, I think there are about 40 or 50 candidates.
Why would they choose me?
Yeah.
I think because, as they look back, I matched the value system that they upheld. I think I was the type of leader that was similar in many ways to Chuck. I had that community spirit, that community affiliation, which I think was important to them. I was a known entity, being here for 2.5 years, and I think that maybe they saw a longevity, which has been a kind of a tradition here in Wadsworth. 140 some years of a school district, and I think 21 or 22 superintendents. So those might be some of the reasons. I guess you'd have to ask them, but I think having the opportunity to sit down and work with that board over the years and have the opportunity to lead the district, it was a good match. They saw that, and apparently I was able to fulfill that.
One of the most important things about a superintendent and a board is that they have to get along.
Yes.
And that isn't always the case, as you well know.
Yes.
Without divulging anything which would be secretive.
Yes.
probably you and the board got along better than most superintendents get along.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say would be the reason for that? Now, I'll give you some parameters within which to work. You are one person, the board is 7.
5.
Five,
Here in our district,
yeah,
it's 5.
5, I'm sorry,
Yes.
yeah, 5 people.
Yeah.
They're all different.
Right.
You are the fulcrum.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get along with 5 people without they're getting mad at you?
Well, I think the two answers I could give to that would be, one, we all know our roles, or we both know our roles, and I think that was important to establish for me to clarify to them what my role was, and for me to also help clarify them what their role is. And then secondly, ego. I think that there's a time when superintendents and boards clash because sometimes egos get in the way. There were times when I would step back, even though it was my role and my responsibility. I understood where the battle was, and I picked my battles in that regard.
That's what I'm after. The fact is that you have a keen sense of understanding of how to deal with human beings.
I think that was the other thing. Reading people and knowing them, knowing when to let them move in the direction, also trying to help serve them and meet their need. A lot of times board members in any capacity, whether people call it an agenda or an issue, I think what my task was to help resolve that issue as best I can for them, and to help walk them or talk them through that process. And then I think they feel that they've done their job as a board member and they've met their need or their constituents' need. But I had several board members to work with over the years. It was a very stable board, obviously. Without a doubt, Jim McIlvain was the anchor to that
25 years or 27 years, something like that, wasn't it?
What a phenomenal leader, an outstanding person.
There's no question about that.
And he was the mainstay on the board for the duration that I was there. Lisa Jones was on there for a long time, and
Sandy
Slaro was on there just the beginning. So I worked with Marla Bianco and Scott Brew in the past, and Bob Durhammer. We had a John McIlvain, and then most recently Linda Kramer and Chuck and Dave White came on board. So I had a variety of board members to work with. As you're correct, each with their own way of looking at things, their own personality, their own interest, certainly. And I don't want to say managing the board is a challenge, but working with them is something that a superintendent, I think, will ultimately lead to his or her success or demise.
Some years ago, a group came from Virginia, some small town, some small college in Virginia, I forgot which one it was right now, came to the University of Akron looking for some help because they were having a difficult time with the same thing that you're talking about here. And they interviewed several people at the university. I was one of them. And the person said, do you have one sentence that you can help me with that will help me to deal with my board? I said, yes. Leave your ego on the dressing table when you get up in the morning, because board members have a responsibility, and they have a personality, and the only way that you can work with them, of course, you know this better than anybody else in the world, the only way that you can work with them is to work with them, not through them.
Right. And I think maybe if I could put it in my own words, I chose when to push back, and when I push back, I try to do that gently and professionally as I possibly could, to help educate them and to also help give them information as a school leader about why that would not be my recommendation, and the rationale, and give them evidence about why I would not go in that direction.
Now I'm going to give you a value question, a value judgment question. You're not going to want to answer it.
Okay.
But it would be helpful if you could answer it. You have had a lot of experiences that have put you into a good, high social, academic, and popular wise stratum, right?
Right.
What is it that makes you come out as being humble?
I think my initial family values that my mom and dad raised us on are part of my core. My wife keeps me grounded. Who I am, and what I would say, especially in times of challenge, superintendent is what I do for a job. It's not who I am. Who am I? I'm a person that loves my wife. I love my kids. My family's important. I like to work around the house on the weekend. I like to listen to Jimmy Buffett music. That's who I am as a person, and I try to keep that core grounded. And my superintendent is the job that I've been asked to do, and I keep that. I try to keep that over those 12 years in perspective, in good times and in bad. That I still have to remember that my wife and my 5 daughters are what I'm about. I have a responsibility to be a good husband, to be a good father, and to be a good friend. And that's who I am, and the job is something different.
Now, 2 easy questions.
Okay.
Tell us the names of your 5 daughters and tell us where they are and who they are.
My oldest daughter, I'll do chronologically, Sarah. She's 22, and she currently works in Columbus, a proud Kent State graduate in managerial marketing. She has a job working now in Columbus. My second daughter, Maria, is 20, and she is a junior at Ohio State. She started at Duquesne and recently transferred. She's a biology major, right now, maybe zoology.
She went from Duquesne to Ohio State.
Duquesne to Ohio State.
That helps the checkbook, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But it's good to have her back in the state. Still about 2 hours from home, though. And then currently, my middle daughter Olivia is very active at the high school. She's a junior, and she's very active in sports, playing volleyball, and she's a cheerleader, and she's on student council. And then my fourth daughter is Sophia, and Sophia is 14. She goes to the middle school. Easily our most enthusiastic athlete in the family. She still plays football for the school team, and plays a lot of other sports. She can play just about any sport she puts her mind to because she is gifted athletically. But she's playing basketball and she plays lacrosse, but works hard, very hard worker, works hard in school. And then Julia, our youngest, she's 8, and she, I think, brings a smile to everybody's face in our family. I think she's one that everybody loves to cuddle with and have as the little sister. So she certainly brings up the rear, but the youngest, but not the least forgotten.
Oh, they're just delightful kids, all 5 of them. And the second easy question is, you like to work around the house at home,
yes,
and so forth. I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about your hobbies.
Well, I think my hobbies have been kind of, molded by my career. And I think my hobbies would be my family and watching my kids, grow up, and then working around the house. I don't really golf. I don't have a lot of other interests or activities, but with 5 kids, I loved watching Sarah and Maria play high school sports and multiple activities, and they were both in student council. I love going to the high school events now with Olivia involved in a lot of different things, and I love going to youth and other activities, the other kids. So I think, what do I do in my spare time? They're usually, the spare time that I have outside of work is divided between going to watch my kids do their thing, work around the house, and then spend some time with my wife. So that's what I do.
Any mechanical hobbies?
No, just home repair. When you own a home, there's either always something to fix or to improve, and I enjoy doing that. If there's any release, that's release. And I'll play golf, and I'll go fishing, and I'll go to some sporting events outside of school sporting events. But for the most part, I think that's where I focus my time.
People in Wadsworth do not know what you're doing right now. they know where you are and so forth. But could you describe what you're doing in your new job?
Sure. I've been fortunate to land with a great company, Sandridge Food Corporation in Medina, and I am the Vice President of Human Resources and Organizational Development. It's a fantastic company that produces 500 products for Giant Eagle and for Kroger and Costco and Publix and GFS. 500 different types of products, packaged pasta salads, potato salads, macaroni salads. We package one product underneath our brand name, which is Grandma's. Grandma's brand is Sandridge brand, so if you see that in the grocery store in Kroger or Giant Eagle or Costco, and then everything else we package privately labeled for those companies.
Now, who owns Sandridge?
Mark Sandridge is the CEO.
Mark
and
Sandridge.
It's family-owned business for over 50 years.
How big is the business?
We have 540 employees.
540
yes,
employees?
all in Medina. Just acquired a smaller, actually it's a meat plant outside of Peoria, Illinois, and we're trying to expand to try to be more efficient, because our focus has been on fresh foods and fresh salads, but there is a meat product that goes into the chicken salad or the beef products, some of the meat sauces that they make there at Sandridge, and the soups. We also make soups, but Mark Sandridge has led that company. It's a family-owned business started by his dad, and continues to be successful.
You left the schools on June 1st, right?
June 30th was my last day.
June 30th, okay.
Yes.
June 30th, you went to bed that night. The following day, you were at Sandridge, right?
I was shortly after, took a few days off for the 4th, but then started.
Right after the 4th,
yes.
So on the 5th. What was in your mind when you made this abrupt change in your whole life?
I just wanted to contribute. I just wanted to work somewhere, and I wanted to try to make a difference. I think I had the opportunity to maybe make a difference in the school setting, in another school setting, but I think it was time in my life that I was going to work for another 10, 15 years, and if I was going to explore the private sector and try to look at those challenges, this would be a good opportunity to do it. So it happened pretty quickly. I got connected with Sandridge and was extended a job offer, but that change, knock on wood, has been seamless, and it's been good for me as I've moved forward. And I look back without any regret, without any, nothing but good feelings about my opportunity, my experience here in Wadsworth.
While you're here as a superintendent, you left two legacies that I know of, and you probably have many, many more beyond those two legacies that are probably in your heart. The one, of course, is the most important one, and that is the fact that every year that you were here, we had at least outstanding marks from the state,
report
so
card,
forth.
right.
Whatever their words now and then, they change them. But,
they do change.
But the top guy,
right.
you got the A pluses all
yes.
the way through, whatever that is.
Yes.
That's very important, very
yes.
important, because that's why you're here. However, I think this is accurate. You are the only superintendent in the state of Ohio who built 5 new schools.
Well, I don't know the statistic on that, but certainly that the building project that culminated near the end of my tenure is something certainly I'm proud to be affiliated with. It was a great community effort, great vision, I think, by everybody involved, and I think that will last and affect generations for coming. So that contribution and providing outstanding facilities for our community was so very important to me, and I'm proud of being part of that. And I think, as you mentioned before, I'm equally proud of our academic accomplishments. That's what we were here for as a school, as an institution, to educate kids, to give them an opportunity. And when you score high, you sleep better at night. And I'm glad to have that, reach that pinnacle academically and have that during my tenure.
Not only do we have a strong athletic program, we have a strong music program as well. When I was mayor, I was invited to a program that the junior high school, or the middle school, still called it junior high,
Right.
the middle school people were having. And for whatever reason, I was asked to make some comments about it. And I got up there, and these were kids who only last week learned how to tie their shoes, you know. And they did such a beautiful job. And I said, I guess the only thing that I can say to compliment this band that was playing is the fact that it is the Wadsworth Middle School University Band. They were that good. You have good academic programs, you had good athletic programs, you have good art programs. What else would you want? Probably nothing more that you could possibly do. The only thing that we didn't have is something that was said by Dante in one of his books, that poverty is made because there is not enough gold. However, progress is made because there is too much gold. So what we did here with what we had is what you actually were able to do as another legacy.
Yes.
We had some money problems.
Sure.
Everyone does, but you were able to do it without. So Dale, Dr. Dale Fortner, it is what a real privilege that we have had you as a superintendent for all these years, and we certainly hope that with your new endeavors, that you will be happy, because you deserve that as a reward for what you did for Wadsworth. And thank you so much for sharing your personal life with us today here on Wadsworth History on Film.
Well, it's certainly been my pleasure. It's been my honor to serve, and I appreciate the chance to sit down and chat with you.
Our pleasure's in, well, thank you.
Thank you.